Hello, this is Mahanta Didia. The book on liquid utilizes qubits video format. In this book, we use integrated approach used by innovative pharmaceutical and cosmetic institution that starts with pre-formulation, selection of excipients for formulation development, and then lab to commercial scale manufacturing, followed by quality and clinical supply. In this module, we would cover equipment and processes. Readers are requested to refer to Module 7 on equipment and processes for solution dosage form, as systems are interchangeable for several products. This is a follow-up to Module 10, in which we covered composition and formulation of several products. Equipment and processes are interrelated, though they are different. If any one of these things fail, either the equipment or the process, entire product fails. In this integrated approach, we first look at equipment. When we are developing lab scale on a smaller scale, we need to be aware of what equipment manufacturing will use and take the measurement. Food and Drug Administration guidance on manufacturing process. Readers are requested to refer to Module 7.4 for additional information on FDA guidance. We will not repeat that in this module. Batch formula is needed in which all the ingredients needs to be listed. Manufacturing and packaging processes for a representative batch size must be included, in which description of each production step, actual manufacturing conditions, and equipment to be utilized. In addition to that, point of sampling for in-process control needs to be done. Schematic diagram of a production process should be superimposed with material flow. Again, we covered that in Module 7, and we will not go into details for this particular module. So processing stages for suspension depends obviously on the product. However, there are some key elements. Hydration and wearing of insoluble solid suspenoid biosurfactants or polymers. Hydration and solubilization of polymers and suspending agent. Mixing of water-soluble components to form aqueous solution. Solvent and co-solvents are selected based on pre-formulation and formulation data. Mixing of ingredients is carefully controlled in suspension. Preparation of vehicle is the step with pH and auxiliary agents. To that, hydrated polymers are added. Hydration may require several hours, and that needs to be included in manufacturing. Hydration of polymers and insoluble liquid are generally done separate, and then they are added to the vehicle. Flocculating agent and flavors are generally diluted and added. Let's look at hydration. So hydration allow solid to slow release. There are many ways to measure. Taste wedding test is commonly used in food industry. The most commonly used is contact angle. This is the contact angle, and we have seen the droplets forming, the active and polymers. That hydration is critical to stable suspension. We will see here one of the suspending agents, CMC hydrate. We use high energy mills to solubilize suspending agent and disperse insoluble powders ingredient in the suspension vehicle. Homogenization of the final product of suspension and recirculation is common. For suspension, product is continuously mixed until it's packaged. During laboratory development, processing test steps, understand commercial equipment is and commercial processing. So here is an example of how to mix carboxymetal cellulose or CMC using high shear mixer. So as you can see, high shear mixer will generate a vortex. As soon as we add CMC, vortex will start disappearing. Still intense mixing, and the powder is dispersed very readily. If we look at it from the top angle, we'll see powder addition on a large scale also is mixing. The suspension required high intensity mixer. Products are hydrated for several hours. Homogenizers, there are many types of homogenizers used in suspension. Depending on institution, there would be one or two types of homogenizers available for entire product line, including creams, lotions, and suspension. Here is an example of a high pressure homogenizer. In this case, agglomerations are broken due to high pressure. It can also be used to reduce the particle size. One has to be very careful. It's very clearly specified. Homogenizers are used to generate nano suspension. Micro suspension is a feed and high pressure homogenization that generates a nano suspension. So let's look at how homogenizers work. And this is one of them, that different ways of high pressure homogenizers are presented. There would be an in-feed and a piston-driven system. So you can see that piston-driven system that generates the high pressure. Many companies have similar piston-driven systems. Inlet and outlet are shown here. As the product comes in, it comes in at a certain feed. Plunger will push it through the discharge valve at high pressure. And it moves through a gap. And this is very critical. The gap then reduces the particles or makes it homogeneous depending on the gap. Here's an example of lab scale ball media followed by lyophilization to make a nano suspension. These type of techniques at lab scales are used for parenteral products. Micro suspension is prepared and then milled to produce nano suspension. In this case, nano suspension is taken and lyophilized, removal of water at very low temperature of minus 40 degrees centigrade. Let's look at a lab procedure here. So wet ball mill material is added, and these materials are very specialized. The mill is then sealed properly, and mill will be then removed, and suspension material will be added. So suspension material will be taken to a milling station, and this is a milling station, and milling of micro suspension. Micro suspension is coming in, like this is a lab process, and nano suspension is filled in here. So nano suspension then lyophilized, again on a small scale. This is using laminar flow to avoid contamination. Small filling stations are used. The nano suspension now is poured into small glass vials. Specialized rubber stopper is attached to it and is loaded into a lyophilizer. And once the operation is complete, valves are closed and dry powder nano suspension is produced, which can be reconstituted to produce a nano suspension. Let's look at typical process equipment that's used in manufacturing. Most companies will have mixers that are used for multiple types of products. Very rarely you will have a dedicated mixers. Specific mixers, homogenizer that's required will be added or inserted. There are two different types of mixers in here. When you are developing product in a lab mode, you need to be aware of which type of mixer company has in manufacturing, and you want to simulate your processes accordingly. In the first video here, it's a bottom-driven mixer. And we'll see three vessel system, which is common. And in this case, you will see other vessels are used, such as drums here, and material will be poured into main vessel. Water, just water aqueous phase, sugar, other soluble ingredients can be added. The mixture here, hydrated mixture, eventually will be transferred into different systems. So this is active, hydrated, and active will be added to it. Active in this case will be insoluble. Again, this is a bottom-driven mixer, and a homogenizer can be added. In addition to that, other raw materials can be added for hydration. Solid is hydrated for several hours. Everything then is transferred into main mixer, including the aqueous phase, and then hydrated material is transferred. And then we can add more materials as needed. Into the main vessel, depending on the product. It will be put into a liquid storage where in suspension, it has to be continuously mixed. So let's look at different manufacturing system. This will be from the top mix. So equipment will have a storage vessels, vacuuming system. We can see now the mixer itself moving differently. So you need to be aware of it. This is a propeller mixer. This is a homogenization added to it, and another propeller mixer, developmental mode. So different companies will have different systems. So process to manufacturing, hydration of functional polymers, particle hydration with wetting or dispersion agents with intense mixing, aqueous vehicle, which generally uses propeller mixers. Sequence of addition is to vehicle, polymer, and followed by hydrated solids. This makes a deflocculated suspension. Add flocculating agents to make flocculated suspension and then homogenize at a sufficient pressure.